we know investing in real estate is a proven way to build intergenerational wealth and to close the wealth gap. But what if something like inherent bias, which often goes undetected, ends up influencing a buyer's decision to purchase your home or not? Monique is here with what you need to know to protect yourself when selling your house. Welcome, Monique. Let's go right back to the beginning to understand how race discrimination showed up in real estate practices in the past.
So Canada has a long, riddled history with race and discrimination in its real estate practices that predates the 1960s. We can see it in the way that this country has treated the Indigenous, the Jewish, African Canadian, and the Japanese community, among other ethnic groups. But reform has happened since. But we do live in a multi-ethnic, rich country. And we've all descended here with high hopes and aspirations for our families to thrive here. But, in the process, perhaps we have brought over or have learned toxic racial bias. And it's deeply entrenched in our society and the way that we treat one another and deal with one another. And as a realtor, I am hyper aware of these biases that are floating around in our society. And it's my job to really protect my clients in a situation where they are going to encounter someone with racial bias.
It's awful to hear, but it is a reality. So tell us about the part you play as a realtor when such biases show up.
Yes. So as a realtor, it is my job to protect sellers in the event that we do come across a buyer that does have racial bias, okay? So in this market especially, sellers want top dollar for their home. However, there might be elements throughout your home, such as decor, that might reflect your cultural and ethnic background. So when we talk to clients, and preparing them for the selling process, we explain the importance of neutralization of your property. So we're not just talking about removing decor pieces and changing colors throughout the home. We're also taking a very close look at the home to see what clues might be within the home that might reveal your ethnic background.
Okay, so we're talking all those family photos. What do we keep in mind when neutralizing a property? How does one prep one's home for sale?
The way that we prep a home for sale is we look at the color palette that's within the home. So we're going to be using colors such as like grays, beiges, whites throughout the home when it comes to painting the home. We also want family photos, as you said, Tracy, to be removed from the home. Any kind of cultural decor or religious items removed from the home as well. When it comes to cooking, we tell clients, try to refrain from cooking in your home because odors can turn off buyers. We don't want to make it easy for a racist to exercise their racism, especially when they're touring your home. So we really have to eliminate the items that would give them the leeway to do so.
So you want to give yourself the biggest advantage possible, and sometimes that means stripping every sense of you living in that house in order for people not to lean on their implicit bias, which is kind of sad. Now, you went through this same process yourself, Monique, when you sold your house.
Yes, I too went through this neutralization process, which meant that, we swapped out some decor pieces. We took down art that may be reflective of my culture. But we also took a very close look at some of the elements in my home that may reveal my ethnic identity.
My friend did a test, and they left the photos and the decor up and got an appraisal. And then they took down they took down the photos and the decor and got another appraisal. And the appraisal was higher when it looked like they did not live there. So this is part of the discrimination as well. It happens with the appraisal as well, right?
Yes, the appraisal piece in the selling process comes with the package, right? So if a buyer purchases a home and the offer is accepted, it's very likely that that buyer is going to need a home appraisal, okay? So the lender of the mortgage, right, that's going to be assigned to that buyer, they're going to order an independent appraisal to make sure that the value that that buyer had paid for the house is in line with market value in order to approve the mortgage. But what happens in the event where that appraiser is racially biased, right? There is an impact, and it could be devastating for both the buyer and the seller. So I just want to give you an example, Tracy, okay? So if a buyer purchases a home for $900,000, for example, okay, the appraiser walks in, they may see evidence that someone of a particular group that they are biased against is present in the home. Studies have shown that that appraiser will undervalue the home. Okay, so what position does this leave a seller in? It leaves them in a very vulnerable position, and I'll tell you why. So if that buyer has purchased a house on $900,000 and the appraiser comes in and appraises it for $850,000 because of that bias, right? That puts the seller and the buyer in a very precarious position, because now it's up for that buyer to come up with that extra $50,000 to close that gap, right? So in that situation, they may not be able to close the deal. And now the seller is now in jeopardy. So if that buyer cannot close the deal, right, now that seller is forced to relist their home. And let's say that the market is shifting. Let's say we're relisting in a shifting market. There's a possibility that we may not be able to get that high price that we once got. So they're not only losing on the sale price, but they also now may have to get involved with litigation to now go after that buyer for reneging on the deal. Right? So there could be a devastating financial loss for both parties, and it's all because of toxic racial bias.
That is a dangerous domino effect, which is, just has the potential to hurt all the parties involved. So pretty devastating there, Monique. Do you have any other tips that you want to leave us as a realtor?
Absolutely. The subject of race and discrimination can have a profound impact on the real estate, on our real estate practice, right? So sellers need to be aware that this does exist, and people need to know what to do when they're preparing their home for sale, because really it is our equity and our wealth that's really at stake here.
Yeah, so really, really, really big stakes. Great info. Sad info, yes, but great info. We need to be armed with it. So thank you, Monique.
Yes. Thank you.